Dinesh D'Souza, filmmaker, author. Everybody knows Dinesh. And it's so good to see you, my friend. It's been some time. I hope that you've been holding up well with all of this hysteria. And congratulations on the new film, which I'm going to talk to you about. But one of the first things I thought when I was reading this story is Dinesh was punished for less, which I always thought it was ridiculous. But this is ACTBLUE, which is very far left candidates. It seems like they're very selective in the level of progressivism with some of the organizations and people that they work with. Have you followed this closely? And if so, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, it's just outrageous how the shenanigans on the left go on uninhibited. It seems like there's never any accountability. I remember just about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, Rosie O'Donnell said, hey, I violated the campaign finance law 5 different times. And we know that this was deliberate because she used 4 different names and 5 different addresses. So in other words, the purpose of doing that was so that computers couldn't collate and make sure it was the same person who was making the donations. And yet, as far as I know, although there was some social media publicity about it, she was never indicted, not even investigated for this. So what is the point of having these laws if they can be deployed in such a kind of selective and non-even-handed manner? It really reduces the respect for law itself. That's right. The point. I never, when I exceeded the campaign finance law, I never claimed I didn't do it. I was like, okay, I did it. You know, I should get the same penalty that anyone else gets who does the same thing. And that was the focus of my complaint, is this enormous selective prosecution, selective punishment, double standards, all of which put law itself into disrepute.
Yeah, point well taken too. And you would think a party or an ideology that spent such an inordinate amount of time complaining about the threat of foreign intervention would want to immediately dispel any accusations of foreign intervention with their number one fundraising apparatus right now. But so far, there's been no interest on their part to do that.
Not only that, but there is, for example, a lot of evidence of Middle Eastern money that comes into American politics. And by the way, this is not just directly into the electoral process, but a lot of think tanks are funded by money that goes through Qatar. Some of that is, by the way, Iranian money, because the Iranians don't operate directly. They work through subsidiaries like Qatar. And yet, again, there's no media reporting on this. If it's pointed out, there's a shrug of the shoulders. So you get the sense that there's a fundamental dishonesty guiding this entire process. Very often the principle invoked is not the one that anyone really cares about. They only care about the principle when it can be selectively deployed against someone that they want to sort of take out.
Yeah, and it doesn't really quieten the speculation of wide organization. When you look at some of the riots and some of the discussion about the violence happening in cities, there was a whole report that came out, and I know Julio Rosas over at Town Hall was talking about how you had different individuals with BLM and Antifa that were working in shifts, like they were organizing to send different people out at different times so that they could maintain a constant state of pressure. And when you see the bail that is being raised for not just even in Kenosha, but or Minneapolis, but in other parts of the country, and then you see all these groups, they're all working with ACTBLUE. ACTBLUE seems to be like the common denominator that is popping up for so many. Is that just because of how they're structured, that they operate digitally, so it seems like it's easier, or is it, to me, I have so many questions that are around this, because you don't see stuff like this on the right.
Yeah, very many people are familiar with the phrase sort of good cop, bad cop, which refers to sort of a strategy for trying to get information in which one cop plays the tough guy, one plays the sort of soft guy. But there's a kind of equivalent on the other side. I would call it good criminal, bad criminal. And what I mean by this is that you've got Antifa, BLM, and they do all this marauding on the street, which is very useful to the left. And then you have the sort of good criminals, which is to say the people in the mayor's office, in de Blasio's office, people in ACTBLUE. They pretend to have nothing to do with the bad criminals, but in fact the two are working in cohorts. The bad criminals break windows, and the good criminals then approach the storekeeper and offer a protection racket, or they basically say, we'll call you racist if you don't pay up, or if you really want peace, this is the price you have to pay. So so what's really happening here is that the Democratic Party is not some independent force that has to sort of deal with BLM and Antifa. Rather, they're sort of they're doing teamwork on their own side. And very often these thugs on the street have friends in high places who put up bail money, who supply convenient supplies of bricks, who also then decide when to call off the protest when the poll numbers show that these protests are becoming politically inconvenient.
Yes, absolutely. And there's so much to watch with this, and I'm curious to see what investigation, if any, comes from some of the reporting, because what they were saying that a significant number, they were talking about people who were just not filling in employers as in some of their info as was required by law. Well, we'll see if it's consistently enforced. But I want to make sure that we get to talking about Infidel, which Jim Caviezel is in this, and I just seen the trailer. It looks beautifully shot. I know you are a producer on this, and it's telling a story that would not, and you're right, I think this would not get made in Hollywood. I think Hollywood is too eager to bend a knee to the Communist Party of China and do whatever they can to make Tencent happy. But the website for the movie is infidel911.com. Tell me about this, because I don't want to give it everything away, but I love the pro-American freedom sentiment that is expressed in this story.
Well, I think, first of all, that it's really important that we conservatives, if you will, make mainstream movies that tell stories that reflect our values. If you look at Hollywood propaganda, it doesn't really mainly go through documentaries. Documentaries are sort of a sideshow in Hollywood. The gold standard is the feature film. And in the feature film, the bad guy is always some small town pastor who's a secret Ku Klux Klansman, or it's some business guy who's running some kind of corruption racket. And the heroes are always black and gay and so on. So this is the Hollywood narrative. This is their stock story. If they ever show a terrorist, it's never going to be an Islamic terrorist. It's typically some Russian guy or some guy from Eastern Europe. So this is sort of, La La Land, really. And there's such a deep need for stories that reflect profound human and patriotic and nationalist and Christian values. So the plot of Infidel is you've got this Christian guy, and he's an American, and he's a patriot, and he sort of gets innocently embroiled in the politics of radical Islam, both at home in America and abroad. And so the plot moves from America to the Middle East, to Cairo and Lebanon and Iran. So this is a story that's a political thriller ripped from the headlines. We're thrilled to have, of course, Caviezel play the lead. And it's an all-star cast, international cast, terrific acting. Now, there's, I got to warn people that this is a gritty movie. This is not the kind of niche Christian movie. It's got some foul language. It's R-rated. But we felt it's important to make movies that are embedded in the culture, that reflect the world as it is, and tell powerful stories that nevertheless, at the end of the day, affirm conservative values.
And I love that you're able, unlike some other filmmakers that have been criticized for, I think, their poor story writing and ability to accurately convey a message, you've always been very successful in reaffirming the beliefs that you seek to defend without violating those beliefs, which I do appreciate.
Well, the thing is, I've now done, 5 documentary films. And so we've kind of got that art down. And we found, Debbie, my wife, and I are the executive producers of Infidel. And we found a very talented Iranian-American writer and director, Cyrus Noraste, who wrote the story. And we had initially approached Jim Caviezel to do just kind of a cameo role in the film. We didn't think we could afford him. But he loved the story. And he goes, wait, who's playing the lead? Why can't I play the lead? And we're like, you can play the lead. And that's how we got Jim Caviezel. And of course, with A Passion of the Christ, him playing Jesus, he was the Count in the Count of Monte Cristo. It also gives the film not only a very broad American, but I would say an international appeal as well.
And I have to say, and this is not to slight other filmmakers, but sometimes when you go and you watch a conservative movie that's been made or produced by conservatives, it doesn't have that look. You know what I mean? It doesn't have, whether it's the lighting, whether it's the angles, the camera direction, it just doesn't have the look of a major feature film that you would expect to see, from Hollywood. This looks like it, though. I mean, it's beautifully shot just from what I've seen. And I mean, it looks indistinguishable from something that, you know, you would expect to see coming out of Hollywood, for whatever that's worth. And that's always, I think, difficult for our side to replicate when we're telling stories in film.
This is critical, I think, the point, which is that, we don't want to make niche movies that people feel a kind of political duty or a moral duty to kind of go, quote, support this film. Nobody needs to support this film. What people need to do is go out, celebrate their freedom, and enjoy a really good movie. Now, I would say with Hollywood, their technical skills are excellent, but they've lost the sense of how to tell a good story. Very often you walk out of a movie and you're like, what was that movie about? It was actually well done. The special effects were amazing, but they seem to have forgotten about the idea of plot and character and genuine suspense and even real human feelings.
Yes.
Well, this movie has all of that. So this is the kind of movie I think that people who love movies and love good stories, and although this movie deals with issues of patriotism and radical Islam, it doesn't do it in a narrow propagandistic way at all. This is not sort of a movie that comes out on one side or the other. It just shows life as it is, and you'll come out, I think, feeling profoundly moved and profoundly entertained.
This is one of the first things that's been coming out in theaters that since all of the lockdown, that I looked at my husband and I said, okay, I want to go out and see this. I want to go see this film. So I'm very much looking forward to it. The website, infidel911.com. But I also really quickly want to touch on the upcoming documentary, Trump Card. That's going to be coming out on DVD October 6th, and you can pre-order that at DineshD'Souza.com. It'll be on demand on October 9th. Congratulations on all of the amazing work, Dinesh, and for giving us some of your time today.
It was a pleasure.